Hello, everybody. So this is going to be sort of directions for Project 3, which is representation in a sign. So you should have already read what comes before this video in the module list. We're going to talk about it a little bit more and give you some examples of some things. So we've already done mind maps and brainstormings, so that should be your very first step. We've already done that. We've already done that for an assignment, so you should know how to do that at this point. You should have 20 ideas within your mind map or brainstorm. That does not mean that you should have 20 brainstorms. That means 20 sort of connections or concepts within your brainstorm or mind map. Then your next step is to create a mood board. So you can include anything and everything in your mood board. They don't have to be very big. So this one's got a lot going on. This is at most, you should have this much. You can do more than this if you just absolutely think you need it. But this is more of what the vibe is going to be. It doesn't have to be necessarily elements that you're going to include. But it's more of like what you want it to feel like. So what kind of colors do you want to use? Are there any specific textures that you want to use? Here's another example. So this one focuses more on color. It's got plants. This one's more of like a mood board for a room, but it's that same kind of idea. So what kind of types of things do we want to include? What inspires this? What's the vibe? Again, here's some more. We've got different textures. We've got color. So this one focuses more on green things. So it's more about what's the vibe. The things that you include don't have to relate. It doesn't even have to be about the thing. It can be about the texture of the thing. So, for example, in this one, there's a picture of a door. The door doesn't have to do with anything, but if you like the texture that the door has on it, that can be an element that you include. And you don't have to include all of the elements that you include in your mood board. Again, it's just for ideas. It's just to sort of think about the aesthetic of what you're going to make as your final design. So that's why it comes after you get sort of your concepts together, sort of your mind map, your brainstorm. So these are the types of things you might want to include. It can be icons that you want. It can be icons that you want to include. It can be colors that you want to include. It can be just a few of those things or all of those things. You do need to include more than just one image, obviously. And don't just like Google mind maps and pick a mind map that's already made. I do know how to reverse image search on Google. So make your own. You can do this in Canva. I think Canva might have a feature that like helps you do this. And Canva also has images pre-downloaded on there. You don't have to find your own images. There's a program called Figma that I mentioned that you can also do this on. You can do it in Word if you want to pull images into a Word document. You can do it in PowerPoint. You can pull images into a PowerPoint and export that one slide. It needs to be one document. If you really want to get hands-on, you can print images glue them onto a piece of paper and take a picture or scan it. That also works. But it does need to be one document that you submit. It doesn't need to be just a bunch of individual pictures that you submit for your mood board. So it does need to be like together. So something kind of like Canva that gives you like an outline might be beneficial. Our next step is sketches. So in your directions, it says to do 10 sketches. If you just really, really want to do one sketch on each sheet of paper and use 10 pieces of paper, you can do that. You don't have to. I recommend doing what's called thumbnail sketches. So thumbnail sketches are not supposed to be very big. So this is one sheet of paper. It's got 12 images on it. So they don't have to be very big. They can just be rough sketches. If you want to draw with little stick people, if you want to just use rectangles and squares, if you want to add color to it, you can. These aren't in color, but they don't have to be in color. They can be in color if that's what helps you work. So this is more about getting your thoughts down on paper, getting potential designs down on paper. So each one should be a different design for your final. What you're going to do is you're going to have 10 different ideas of what your final design could look like. Then you're going to take one of those and make a final design. So these are obviously not sketches for this project. These were just some sketches that I had available. In case you're curious, this project was combining two different things that don't go together to make a new thing. So for the final project from this, we took this bottom right design and we made this. So you're going to take one of those sketches, you're going to add to it, you're going to finalize it, you're going to make it different. And again, this is not for this specific project. I don't actually have an example of this specific project at the moment. But you're going to do little sketches. They don't have to be big. If it makes you more comfortable, if you do better with larger sketches, that's fine. They don't have to be. They don't even have to be as detailed as these are. It can be more of ambiguous shapes in your little squares. If you need to leave like comments or things to yourself underneath them, you don't have to do them in grid like this. You can do like a square with blank space underneath it. That's fine. Something that I had somebody do before, in PowerPoint, there's a way that you can print your PowerPoint as a sheet and it'll have lines like for taking notes. And so they made a PowerPoint with blank slides and printed it. So they had squares with lines to one side to draw in and then leave themselves notes. You don't have to do that. Whatever works best for you. Again, this is more about process. So think about if you're making 10 ideas, how is that going to work for you? What do you want that to look like? What's going to function best for you with the way that you think and the way that you interpret? So then your final design. I keep saying final design. Your design can be whatever you want it to be. Think about it like an inner self-portrait. So if your inner self-portrait is non-representational, and by non-representational, I mean it doesn't look like any real thing. Think like a Jackson Pollock painting. If that's what your inner self-portrait looks like, as long as you've done the research behind it, that's fine. That's what your final design can look like. If your inner self-portrait has abstraction, so that means taking a real thing and changing it to look like sort of ambiguous. So you can think about Cubism or Pablo Picasso. Then you can abstract things. That's fine. It doesn't have to be realism. It doesn't have to be real. It doesn't have to look like if you draw a basketball. It doesn't have to look like a basketball. Again, for this class, we're not grading on what your product looks like. We're not grading on skill of your drawing capabilities. We're grading more on process and actually doing the assignment and putting effort into the assignment and thinking about the assignment. So you can also use any medium. If you work really well digitally and you want to draw on your iPad in Freeform or in another app or any other tablet with an app, that's fine. If you want to use clip art, or if you do know how to use Photoshop and you want to use Illustrator or Photoshop to design something, that's fine too. If you want to paint and you have the stuff to paint, go for it. If you want to draw, just use paper and pencil. I do ask that you don't use lined paper, just because it is a little bit unprofessional. And I know that we are not making professional drawings here. But lined paper becomes a part of your design. Anything that's already on the paper is going to become part of your design. So If you want your image to be monochromatic, and by monochromatic I mean one color, you can draw on a piece of red paper, but know like that red paper becomes part of your design. So think about sort of those kinds of things as you work. You can use markers, you can use pens, whatever media you want to use. If you are really dedicated and you want to go crazy and you want to use sculpture, pull out some Play-Doh or some clay and design something, you can do that. As long as your final design is something that's made from your mind map or brainstorm, your mood board, and then your sketches. You still have to have the sketches even if you make something three-dimensional. Draw sketches of a three-dimensional design. That's fine. Then the very, very last part of this assignment is a presentation. This can be a video or it can be in writing. And it's going to be part of a discussion. So your classmates are going to see it. And you do have to respond to somebody else's, which means you have to either read or watch the video they make. So if you do decide to do a video, it doesn't have to be very long, 1 to 5 minutes. You're mostly going to talk about, you've got to show what your final product was, obviously. But you're mostly going to talk about your process. You don't have to show your process. You don't have to show your mind map, brainstorm, mood board, unless you want to. You can, but you don't have to. But talk about the ideas that got you to that final product. How that final product represents you. Again, this should be an expression of who you are, expression of the things you like, your hobbies, your ideas, things you're passionate about, things that define you. So talk about yourself. Talk about how this shows this thing about you. If you write it, it's going to be the same content. It's just going to be in a written form instead of a video form. I know not everybody's comfortable talking, and that's fine. Write it out. You do have to include an image of your final product in your discussion if you do write it out. But you're going to write out the same things. What was your process to get your final product? How does it relate to you? How does it show you? How does it define you? So that's this project. It is a lot of parts. There are drop boxes for all the separate parts. This video is in the introduction page. There are directions for each part. So before you start a part, go open the Dropbox, read the directions about. It gives a little bit more detail. But read that little bit. Submit things part by part. Do them in order. They are listed in order for a reason. It helps you think about what you're doing. Don't go straight to the final product and then try to fill in everything else behind it. Everything is due at the same time. That does not mean that you should wait to the last minute to do it. I do that so if you think of something else to add to your brainstorm while you're working on your mood board, you can go back and add it. If you're thinking about, while you're sketching, you think about something you want to add to your mood board, you can do that. You don't have to go back and add things. You can include something in your final product that wasn't in any of the rest of your design. You do get ideas as you go along, and that's fine. You don't have to have every single idea that you had at the very beginning. You can grow and learn new ideas as you go, and that's fine. But if you do want to go back and add them into the other parts, then you can. So that's why I leave the due date. So you do have 2 weeks for this project, unless you start on it early, which is fine. So keep your time in mind as you make. So if whatever you make needs to dry, you need to have dry time before you present, so you're not presenting a wet painting, things like that. So that is it for our overview. As always, if you have questions, feel free to email me. I am having some computer problems right now, but I'm working on it. So it's been taking me a little bit longer than usual to respond to emails. So try not to wait till last minute to email me. Email me as soon as you can, so that way I have plenty of time to get back to you. But yes, that's it for this. And again, if you have questions, ask me. I'm not going to know that you don't understand or are struggling unless you talk to me, unless you email me and ask me.